But they didn't move to Dryden. They were just able to afford a house in Dryden. So what happened when we started developing these nodes in the early 2030s was that people started to feel much more of a sense of geographical belonging to the people who lived near them, and a sense of community with the people who were right there. And then people started to share more and have more ideas about how they could get what they wanted right there. So it was that sense of belonging, I think, that really tipped the balance.
And they didn't feel the need to escape as much to
And they
get
didn't,
things done
yeah,
elsewhere.
yeah, they didn't feel like Ithaca was the only place to go.
So some people we found out wanted to just get out of where they were, but the replacement they found over time, over a few years of just being together in a different way, kind of replaced that need to escape. So that was really exciting when that happened.
Yeah, I think people saw that Rebecca came in and she granted us permission, so I started the recording.
And mine popped on too, because I was experimenting to see how you could solve your problem. So we're both doing it.
It's hard to stretch one's mind around how we accomplished it, because we're struggling with how are we going to accomplish it. But I think having a vision of what it's going to be like when we are successful helps us to move more positively towards something rather than negatively against something.
That's true. In 2035, I'll be 80 years old, and it's sort of, by then we'd know if we were successful or not, and it's sort of, I guess we even know by 2030 if we're making good progress. But you know, I'm so hopeful that people finally see the light, but I'm concerned because of, and people don't even get vaccinations for COVID. They don't have the sense, they can't even look ahead that far for the climate. So I have a concern, but I'm wishing that we have a good vision to look at in 2035.
Well, what really happened, Tom, was that we got so many people outside of Ithaca and Tompkins County got excited about those few things that were already working here, that they went ahead and experimented on their own and then kept feeding ideas back and forth with us, and that helped us move forward faster. That's what I really liked about what happened, like around 2025, even 20, especially 2030 was an exciting year, you know, when things were really moving and the ideas, and more people were doing the 1,000 conversations that led to even more action. So
actually 10,000 conversations.
10,000. Yes.
Well, I think the turning point was electing a mayor and a common council that prioritized the topic, and we're able to take political risks to make things happen. Because the technical solutions have been there since 2010. Remember that? Since 20. And what we needed was the will to make things happen.
Yeah, we needed the political will. But I think one of the things that happened across the country was that people woke up to the fact that you can't just be in a representative democracy every 2 years or every 4 years. You have, if it's going to be a representative democracy, you have to keep pushing month after month after month for the people that you elected. It's not just a personality contest for who you like best, and then you get them in there and then you can go about your life and you don't have to think about it anymore. What we finally realized was we have to keep pushing all the time for what we want. And when citizens finally realized, hey, 75% of us want what such and such, and you're voting against it, wait a minute. So that kind of wake up when it finally happened, and I think Trump helped that happen, and the Republicans, the crazy lie Republicans, help people see that they have to stay engaged year after year after year, month after month, to have a representative democracy, because we don't really have a representative democracy right now. And when that wake up happened, we did get a new mayor. We did, and she was fabulous, by the way.
Yes, they were.
Exactly.
Who was she?
Do you remember those old fossil fuel companies like Exxon? And they're no longer around.
Gone,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
gone.
We had that kind of fake algae plan that was just greenwashing, but some other company took that algae idea anyway and profited off of that. Fortunately, a smaller local company right here in Ithaca. So. So what else is happening as we look
Speaking of
around?
algae, they had heard maybe back in 2020 about how if you fed certain kinds of algae to cows, they produce less methane. So that really helped cut down the agricultural methane. And they also made use of the algae. They used the oceans to harvest more algae and cultivated it there. And that also helped reduce the CO2 levels in the ocean.
It's a slow process. I'm sorry, Anne.
That's okay. One of the stumbling blocks that I need your help to think about how we overcame this stumbling block. But one of the stumbling blocks was each person thinking, but what can I do? I have heat pumps, I have solar panels. It's not making enough of a dip. What can I do? How can I think that was one of the major stumbling blocks, is that even the people who wanted to help couldn't quite figure out what they could do to make it better and to make it move faster. So how did we get over that stumbling block?
Well, remember, a lot of problems. So it's always been financial. I mean, things have to work in people's pockets at the household level. And when Luis got his hands on $100 million, he made it possible for people to make the switch at home and install those heat pumps that, and get rid of the gas furnace or whatever. It's just no mystery. You can have all the technology in the world. People need to be able to afford it. It needs to make sense at the home level. And
I also think,
that has to work. And it can be between that and what do you call it? When you have mass production and you get lower prices because it just becomes the norm, and that all works in a synergistic way to allow people to make the right decisions.
yeah, I remember that was part of the case. What worked and really spurring it on in many places, and we're still doing this today, expanding it, is the thermal highway of water that flows under all of the microgrids. And so, the people who can't afford it, I mean, they're just, they're the recipients of the utilities, which are now co-ops. Of this warmed by the sun ground source water that flows in our microgrid and supports it's very inexpensive, and not everybody needs complicated equipment in their own homes, because this is not a home buying problem. This was a community problem and a world problem that needed to be have the technology come to the fore, which exists today on many campuses, is the ground loops, that feed the different buildings with balancing of heating and cooling. So that was really an important realization and happening when we got the expertise in here in Ithaca to make that change.
Going back to transportation, I remember in well, it was before the pandemic, sometime in 2020, I was driving downtown and I drove past one McGuire thing after another McGuire thing after another McGuire thing after another McGuire thing. And my visceral response was, those are all dinosaurs. They're just dinosaurs. They're like, what are they thinking? This is like so ridiculous. So it was almost like in that moment in 2020, I saw all those, like they're in the junkyard now. They're just recycling all that metal and because they can't use them anymore. And I somehow had an inkling that everything was going to shift in terms of transportation. And I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I knew that this was over. It was over. These were all row after row after row of dinosaurs.
I think McGuire was delighted that that happened, actually, because they were the first ones. I got my EV many, many years ago. And McGuire said, oh, well, first I got my EV at McGuire, and they said, oh, and I live in Tioga County. So I do occasionally, I really live in Tompkins County because that's where my heart is. So when I do come, they say, charge here, please charge here anytime you want, 24/7. They told me that way back in 2019, they told me that. And I felt so welcomed by McGuire. They said, even if you didn't get your car here, anybody can come here and charge anytime they want. And I'm there, you rock. And so I think it's just the people who have to demand it, and the people like, and the professors like Preddy at developing a battery business. They're going to be able to charge the EV batteries in 6 minutes at the completion of this. It's going to be, well, it was, it was groundbreaking back in 2022.
Like, do you remember how McGuire always took the vacant parking lots from businesses that closed, and they parked their excess cars there? And then they got the idea to convert all of those to charging stations. So now there's enough charging stations for everyone, and that allowed a lot of the gas stations to close down and use the land for a better purpose.
Yeah.
Well, there's still plenty of cars out there, so they still need mechanics, and we still need service. It's just a different form than when it was gas engines, right?
But we have fewer cars, so that's
Yeah, we do.
so
Yeah.
less. So we need more. I mean, we now have more public transportation, repair and restoration services.
And there are solar panels over all the parking lots.
Yeah.
So the landscape looks really different. A lot of the big box stores were emptied because they couldn't make any money, And so that was all turned into affordable housing. So where people could have small apartments inside of these big box stores, and there were communal spaces and commercial kitchens and playgrounds and separate apartments for people. And so the city just bought the buildings and transformed them into affordable housing. Even in 2022, I read about some in Oregon and in California, because of the wildfires, the state was buying hotels which were suffering because of the pandemic at that time and turning them into affordable housing, sometimes temporary housing for the people whose homes had burned down. And that gave us the idea that, oh, we could create a lot of affordable housing with some of these commercial projects that are going belly up because they can't survive.
Right. And all the office buildings, when people started
Yep.
Working at home more, the empty office
Yep.
buildings. Yeah.
And that really helped when tens of thousands of people migrated to Tompkins County from the places that were going underwater and in drought and burning up. People just were streaming here because it looked like a safe space, but we were able to accommodate everybody because we were taking over all of these empty buildings.
Yeah, a lot of people from down in the city where the levels have been rising, but they move up here to upstate, and helps enrich our community here.
Yep, it was
Yeah, they
already
really
happening.
love the idea of the a walkable place where you could meet all your needs right there. You really didn't have many reasons to go outside.
Well, remember how people used to go to the mall and off hours to do their walking, especially in the winter, and now that old mall is converted to some nice park space, and you can it's talking about recreational walking. That space is better used now.
I love it.